It's been a battle all season long for Mountain West women's basketball teams, which can only mean we're in for an exciting championship in Las Vegas. Will the Lady Rebels get their three-peat of regular season and tournament titles, or will there be a new team that plays their cards right at the Thomas & Mack Center? Still a lot to be decided in this final stretch, but one thing's for certain. We've had plenty of standout players making their marks in the Mountain West this year. Hi everyone, and welcome inside the Mountain West Network studio. I'm Bridget Howard. To talk about the women's basketball season so far and what the Mountain West tournament might bring, it's time to bring in National College basketball broadcaster Tammy Blackburn to get her insight and thoughts on who might be the front runners for the postseason awards. Tammy, my friend, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for making time for us today.
Bridget, honestly, my treat, my pleasure.
Well, we love talking to you, especially about Mountain West women's hoops. And Tammy, when you think of women's hoops in the Mountain West, it's hard not to think about the reigning champions, the UNLV Lady Rebels. Lindy LaRocque and her squad are back at it again this season and have been featured in the top 25 rankings, garnering some much-deserved recognition. The Lady Rebels are at the top of the league standings as it sits today, but there have been some players on other Mountain West teams who have been making some noise. So as it stands right now, who is your pick for the midseason Player of the Year?
Well, you know, this day is always hard for me because leading up to this day with you, you're doing a lot of research and you're following and you know exactly how competitive it is and how close these players are in terms of being able to or should be able to get these awards. So I think I'm just going to start with my front runner, and that is Desiree Young of UNLV. I mean, she's the second leading scorer in this league and leads the league in rebounding. And, you know, that's really hard to do. She's incredibly competitive, but she's shooting, you know, about 60%. She's doing all of that without playing some of the top minutes. And so it tells me that she's very efficient with her time. I think the impact that she has on the game is undeniable. It's absolutely huge. But of course, I would be remiss if I did not mention Colorado State University's McKenna Hofschild. I mean, you have to love to watch her play. And of course, you remember what she did last year. She was the Player of the Year. Leads the league in scoring right now, leads the league in assists. That always is something that I think should be admired. She knows how to get to the free throw line. She's clever, she's crafty. She's a lot of fun to watch, and it's undeniable how good she is. I just think that McKenna's a baller. But at the end of the day, my vote today, if those awards were giving out, I would give it to Desiree Young of UNLV.
Well, Tammy, it was just announced yesterday that both McKenna Hofschild and Desiree Young are among the 10 semifinalists for the Becky Hammon Mid-Major Player of the Year Award. So good picks from you. All right, well, Tammy, defense wins championships is the phrase that you'll hear from every coach across any sport, and it is so important and definitely applies to women's hoops here in the Mountain West. So at the midway point, I'm curious, who has made the biggest impact on the defensive end in your eyes that you think deserves the defensive nod here at the midway point?
You know, this is an interesting category. It's probably one of the toughest ones to vote for, and that is because there's so many ways that you can look at Defensive Player of the Year, right? When I take a look at this, I look at the completeness of this, and I think that Abby Muse out of Boise State University is somebody that is definitely my front runner right now. But when you look at the completeness of her game, you have to admire it. She leads the league in blocks. She is in the top 15 in steals. And I want to point out that when you have a shot blocker who leads in steals, they keep the ball alive. That's a live block. They steal it, they go the other way, and that helps with transition. And that's a huge bonus for a team that likes to get up and down the court. But you also need to show up in the defensive rebounding category, and that's exactly what she does. And so she would be my front runner. But there's another player that's worth mentioning, and you know, we did talk about her last year, Bridget, and that is Allison Ferdig of University of Wyoming, who ranks 3rd in defensive rebounding and ranks 8th in blocks. So she shows up on the stat sheet. She too can change the game. But after hearing from coaches and knowing what they're saying about Abby, I'm definitely going to give my nod to Abby Muse of Boise State.
Well, it's a good pick, Tammy, because she's no doubt made a name for herself in the defense department. You touched on it briefly, but she's the reigning Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year. And oh, by the way, last year, she set the career blocks record for the program at Boise State. Well, Tammy, the transfer portal is the way of the world in college athletics right now, and the Mountain West has had its fair share of stars from the portal. Teams have picked up players and been able to fill gaps in big ways on their squads, and this year has been no different. Which player in their debut campaign has caught your eye for Newcomer of the Year?
Nia Wilson of University of New Mexico, and she is fourth in the scoring charts for not only the league, but she also shoots right at about 50%. And what I love about her game is that she's a good little passer. I like the way that she finds her teammates in the open court. She gives you about 2.5 assists per game, and that's important. Now, I always admire a newcomer who has to quickly jump in and learn not only their new personnel, their coaches, but the personnel at the opposite end of the court, and that's exactly what Nia Wilson has been able to do.
Well, Tammy, the Lobos are the only team so far in Mountain West action that have been able to beat the first place Lady Rebels. And speaking of Nia Wilson, against UNLV, she put up 25 points, a season high. All right, Tammy, well, the Mountain West is loaded with fresh talent this season. Coming into a program fresh out of high school and making a stamp on a program is no easy feat. There are a handful of fresh faces who are continuing to make their marks this season in just their first go-around in the Mountain West. All right, who is your leading candidate for Mountain West Freshman of the Year?
Such a difficult category for me, because if you are somebody, and I'm not this way, but looks at Freshman of the Week awards, you wouldn't be able to pick it because it's somebody new every week. But Amarachi Kimpson of UNLV gets my nod. And if you look a little deeper, it's really almost undeniable in what she's been able to do. Bridget, she's a scorer who ranks in the top 20 in conference in scoring. She values the ball, only 4 turnovers in conference games, and that's really something special. So I really like Kimpson. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to Izzy Sullivan, a sharp 3-point shooter for Nevada. She's climbing the charts at Nevada to be, the most 3-pointers by a freshman made. That is single season. She averages double figures, and she is showing that she can really impact the game. And then there is, of course, maybe Taja Santa Maria of Fresno State, who does a really good job. But right now, if you were to ask me for my vote, I'm going for Kimpson of UNLV.
Well, it's a good one because she has got a bright future, no doubt. Tammy, we have such great coaches here in the Mountain West, and it is so hard when it comes down to the Coach of the Year honor because, there can only be one, and it is such a coveted position, and I know you can go a bunch of different ways with this one, but we want to hear from you, the expert. Who is your pick for the midseason Coach of the Year as it stands right now?
Well, Bridget, don't the coaches compete the way that the players compete out on the court? I mean, they have to be just as good. And so, for me, I look at a completeness, if you will, of everything that's happening. And I just think the obvious one right now is Lindy LaRocque at UNLV. I mean, it's hard not to have deep admiration of what she has accomplished at UNLV in such a short amount of time. Listen, let's not dance around something that's so obvious, and that is that winning in college basketball is hard. That's why I have so much respect for Tara Vanderveer. Lindy gets wins, period, and her play calling is incredible. She has a play for everything, and she just prepares her team with very good scouts. Lindy LaRocque is a winner, and, winners, they win, and that's what she's done. I do want to mention, though, that I think Heather Ezell has done an excellent job at Wyoming. I mean, she has her team competing, and they respond nicely to her. She's sitting near the top of the standings. She's got a good chance to finish strong down the stretch run here, Bridget. But for me right now, Lindy LaRocque.
Well, 2 great coaches you mentioned right there in Lindy LaRocque and Heather Ezell. 2 coaches who, by the way, met last year in the title game in Las Vegas. So we'll see here in about a month if it's going to be a rematch between the Lady Rebels and the Cowgirls. Well, Tammy, it has certainly been an exciting season so far. And the best part is we are not done yet. Thank you so much for joining me today and giving us your insight and expertise on Mountain West women's hoops. And we can't wait to see you in Las Vegas.
Hard to do, great competition, but I love doing it. Thank you, Bridget.
Thanks, Tammy. That's National College basketball broadcaster Tammy Blackburn, who will be on the call for the first round of the Mountain West Women's Basketball Championship, along with the quarterfinals and semifinals on the Mountain West Network. Get your tickets now to join us at the Thomas & Mack Center in Las Vegas by visiting the mw.com/2024. Single session tickets are on sale now, and you are not going to want to miss out on the madness at the 2024 Mountain West Basketball Championship. From the Mountain West Network studio, I'm Bridget Howard.